2024 was a hard year for everybody. And as the board president for NABOR, Leslie Ortego really had to take on some challenges. Not only did she give great advice in this segment about how agents can choose the right brokerage and choose the right team, but she also talked about how to work through difficult times. Check out this conversation with Leslie. You won't be disappointed.
Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast mini-series with Courtney Fricky and Jared at Arena Collective. We're excited to have Leslie Victory on today. And we're going to first start with giving a little bit of history about Leslie. And so I know you've been doing this for a couple of years now, real estate agent. Yeah, a few. And I know you have a niche in which you really like to do your business, but we'll come to that later. But, you know, as a leader in this industry, talk a little bit about how you are giving back to the community right now, whether real estate agents or just the real estate community in general.
I love that question. So I've spent the last year as the board president for the Northshore Area Board of Realtors. And in 2023, at the end of 2023, I did a strategic plan for my presidential year. And then right after I did my plan, we were bombarded with industry changing, you know, everything changed.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, it was a very hard year to be in leadership.
Yeah. For anyone, right? Because it's all new for everyone.
Right. Because the instruction manual was lost in the mail. Nobody actually gave it to us.
For the DOJ as well.
Correct. And so I was not able to do, you know, I don't know if anybody who knows me knows I usually have a full plate and I'm doing 15 things at one time.
Yeah.
So my strat plan for NABOR was full of things. Some of those things had to come off. And what I had to do was focus on agents.
Right.
Not necessarily building the board, which was why we were in leadership. The board of directors are appointed and elected to that board as a fiduciary to the business. And what I found myself as a leader accidentally in a position during this time when so many people were struggling, what I realized that our focus had to change. So instead of implementing an e-commerce store and non-dues revenue and implementing, you know, all these fun bells and whistles and shiny objects that could bridge the gap between membership and revenue, right, to keep things moving and to adapt to our current environment, what I really had to do is stop and field a lot of calls from agents who were scared.
You're back, but I mean, your whole career you've been helping develop real estate agents. So I'm sure that
You've done that in many capacities.
Yeah, whatever the plan was, you know, I don't know if anybody who had been more qualified to do what you had to do over the last 365 days because of the fact that you had such an extensive background in helping real estate agents grow their business. Because, I mean, you have the coaching program and the mentorship that you've been doing your whole career. So I'm sure that made it almost like it was just like another day, even though it was having to figure out what this whole new thing was. Everybody was. I mean, we're still figuring it out.
I had a situation today. Yeah. Like they're like, what do we do? I'm like, we don't know. This has never happened. So
I literally, I think I had a conversation this morning as well with an agent, but I had, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with different agents. I would say probably 7 different agents I've had conversations in just the last month on the topic. And I've like been like, hey, can we do X, Y, Z? They're like, well, I don't actually know. I'm like, well, let's figure out if we can do it. I'm like, cause I mean, we're all figuring this out together, but it's a unique time. I think Jared hit the nail on the head that some people are, you know, thriving during this time as far as leading and being able to like answer the call to really show up. But then there's other people who, I mean, there's people who are getting out of leadership. There's people who are getting out of the business. There's people who are, you know, saying, hey, you know, I feel like a broken record, but I've talked about this before where it's like wartime generals and peacetime generals. It's some people who they're only good with like leading and from the front when things are going well, but then there's some people who they thrive when it's like chaos, right? And it's that idea of like generals where, you know, if you're a general, but there's no actual threat in war, then it's one thing. But then there's some people who just thrive underneath the pressure as well.
So how
We're
is
seeing
that? How is that kind of carried into your role as a mentor for the young agents that you are mentoring now? Being able to be on the front lines and see how things are developing. I mean, you really had access to everybody in Louisiana that were pushing things down, and you were the person everybody was looking to for the answers. How is that able to help you with your mentorship and coaching of the agents that you mentor?
So, you know, I've learned a lot over the past year. My philosophy is you win or you learn.
Yeah.
And so most of my life I've learned through just doing hard stuff, and sometimes I do it the wrong way. Yeah. Well, what I found out this year was I did a few things right. And I didn't know. And so when I'm looking back in, you know, retrospect over the past year, you know, agents that I had coached in the, you know, when their business was in the incubancy, like they were little tiny baby agents, you know, and people that I was able to help develop from the beginning of their career. I hadn't seen them in years.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I'm like, why are they calling?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I don't know how to do this. Yeah. This doesn't make sense to me. I'm scared. I left a good job, you know? And so on top of, you know, all of the industry noise in the background, Department of Justice, you know, NAR, you know, all these lawsuits, which there are still plenty. We have some in the state of Louisiana. Then on top of the industry turning, right? Every industry changes. We've seen this over and over again. And then, so we had all that stuff on top of 2024 was the worst year in real estate, inventory-wise, interest-wise, buyer perspective-wise, financing, all the categories and buckets line up to statistically tell us that it's been the worst year since probably 2016, according to NAR stats.
Yeah, we were talking about this. There's not been a crash in price, but there has been a crash in transaction volume.
Absolutely.
To where that it's like it's steep enough that it has been reverberating throughout the industry. And so I can absolutely agree with that. And it's a big part of conversations.
Yeah.
You know.
So some of the conversations that I've had to have is, you know, first of all, stay focused. What happens at a national level honestly doesn't affect you as an agent if you stay adaptable, which is part of our job as agents.
Yeah.
Every day we wake up and it's a different market.
Yeah.
So an agent having adaptability is key, right? So that was one thing when people were like, you know, worried. The other thing is, let me just take a minute to help you make some decisions for your future, because what you saw in real estate in 2020, 2021, and 2022, that's not real estate.
Yeah.
What you see happening today is real estate. Real estate is very difficult.
Yep.
It's hard. It's emotional.
Yeah.
It's a hamster wheel. It's a grind. And that's what you need to know. So if what you're experiencing today is not what you visualize your future, like if this is not how you want to spend your time, then maybe you should reevaluate whether or not this real estate world is for you.
Yeah. So when you're coaching agents, is it mostly helping them create systems around their business, or is it mostly around mindset on how to be a real estate agent and deal with these ever-changing markets?
So that's a really good question, because it's kind of both, but you can have all the systems in place you want. If your mindset is wrapped around all of the chaos, if that is what you focus on, then you're out.
Yeah.
None of these systems will work for you.
Yeah.
You can have the best laid out plan, but if you're not going in the right direction, what's the point?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can have the best journey, like from here to California, but if you're really trying to get to New York, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right? And I think a big part of that is a lot of people, maybe they're having to face a reality that's not propped up. And so it's a little bit more, you know, it's kind of like, it's not the you know, you go see someone and they have their house all clean, but you like show up unannounced and you're like, oh, this is what it really looks like, right?
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. I think that's more the reality that we're looking at right now with real estate. I mean, I'm seeing that with investors right now. And to all of my friends in the industry, the conversations that we're having is like, it really is, you know, taking a village to get a deal across the table these days.
Absolutely.
If that, right? And so it's one of those things, it's a sober thought. It's like, hey, look, I'm not really going to win you with the flashiness of the industry right now because, you know, let's just be honest, that's not really there. But there is, let's go back to the basics and to the fundamentals and say, this is what real estate can give you. This is, you know, the life on your terms as far as time, flexibility, things like that. The ceiling being, because there are agents who are still doing very well right now.
Absolutely.
And they are, you know, tapping into, you know, their income is still doing very well, right? Like there are things like that. And so going back to some of those basics and fundamentals, but just being like, hey, but we're not showing you the highlight reels anymore. We're showing you the behind the scenes footage of like, it's going to take a little bit more effort. It's going to take a little bit more work to get to that. But if you're here for the real and the raw, then, and you have the ability to, you want to learn and you want to put in the work, this is what you could have.
Right. The payoff will be there. I 100% agree with you. The mindset behind a good portion of our real estate agent community is not there. And so a lot of what I've done is talk people off the ledge. But I don't want to talk them off the ledge if they don't really want to go back.
Yeah.
Like I really want them to spend some time in how do you visualize your future? How are you spending your time during the day? Because if talking to your buyer client about how her husband just quit his job and they don't have any more money, but they don't have another place to live and they have to buy this house or something bad will happen, and you're like crying with them every day, you might want to maybe go back to being a nurse.
Yeah. One of the things that Lauren always says, and it applies to any business owner, she says that you're not always going to be motivated. So you have to be disciplined. And you have to have discipline within your systems. And if you're not motivated one day or having a hard time, you have to be able to fall back on the systems that you've built that you do every single day. I think that a lot of people and agents didn't have systems over the last couple of years. And now that they had these difficult times, they don't know what to fall back on to continue to keep moving forward. And I think that, you know, teaching systems within real estate, and you know, as all the brokerage, you got the MREA, you got Ninja Selling, you got all these programs. It's like pick one and pursue it, or create your own system, but follow a system that you can consistently fall back on a day where you don't feel like getting out of bed.
That's right.
Because it's going to be difficult, and if you're not okay with being difficult, then go find something else that you like, that you're passionate about, that you can create a system around, that you enjoy doing, because it's going to be cyclical. People keep coming up to me and saying, "Oh well, we're hoping next year's going to be a good year," but if you think about it practically, in 2008, whenever it was at the bottom, it took 10 years for it to get back to the top. So yeah, it might get better next year, but
And
it's
yet
not
I know a bunch of millionaires that were made in 2008.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think with your leadership role, I think it's wise that you're saying, I'm either talking people off the ledge or helping them understand their decision.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like
right.
that it's either, hey, it's clear as mud that you need to do one way or the other.
That's one thing that I've been frustrated with in this industry. You know, I've had a large part of my responsibilities in this industry have been not only sales, but, you know, coaching agents and recruiting.
Does it feel counter, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you feel like having those honest conversations feel against some of what your previous, you know, like it's still your role to like recruit and things like that, but like, do you want someone there who doesn't want to basically do the work necessary to buy in to be an agent, right?
So my whole thought process behind this has been interesting because I was in positions where the company was like warm bodies. If you have a license, we will take you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but wait a minute. He's not made for this.
Yeah.
And the response was, it's not your job. It's not your job to drown his dream. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, he's a year in. He's got no more savings. he's not closed one transaction. Where's the guy who comes to him and says, hey, friend, let's have a real conversation about whether or not real estate is for you. So my philosophy has always been, when I'm counseling somebody, I want them to visualize how they want to spend their time.
Yeah.
Is this what you want? Can you see this happen? Is this your dream? Because if it's not, I'm not your girl. Because I want people to be happy going to work, whatever that looks like. Because we can do that.
Well, and it's also one of those things where sometimes it just needs a shift. They're young guy, really great. He wanted to be an investor, but on his own, he never got traction. But then when he worked underneath someone, he blossomed.
There you go.
And it was one of those things where I'm like, sometimes it looks like just saying, are you headed basically in the right direction, but not with the right?
Yeah. Are you the right package delivered to the wrong address?
Yeah, exactly. And so there has been some of that where it's like, he's been doing great now as, someone on a team and able to flourish under, the leadership, but also with the structure, going back to the systems and like that. I am not the girl to talk about systems, but I do believe in those things where it's like, at the end of the day, when he was in the right environment, he thrived.
That's right. And that's what we should be focused on when we talk to people who are coming into our industry. And so does that mean that out of 10 agents, 8 of them will probably go away? I would rather them go away sooner than later. Yeah. Why let them grow broke? Why let them suffer and struggle and, they're following a dream they don't really even understand. So I like to have a conversation in the front. Let's talk about what you really want to do with your life. What are your goals? How do you want to spend your time? What's it smell like? What are you eating? What are you driving? I want them to be able to visualize specifically what that looks like. Yeah. And that way, when we encounter years like this, because this is not the end. No. We still have a couple of other industry changes over the course of the next, my lifetime. Yeah. This is not the end. So either you're going to be somebody who's in it for that or you're not.
Well, it comes down to the proper buy-in, like a sober-minded buy-in to what actually is required to get results.
Yeah. And I am a fan of collaboration, cooperation. A lot of people in the real estate coaching and, top-level brokerage, they have their opinions around teams, teamerages, different brokerage models. I believe that the future of real estate is more local, more collaborative, and more full service. A lot of agents look at their splits, right? Oh, a split. Well, what about the value that you have from the proximity to the brokerage you choose? What about the resources that the brokerage offers you? What about the fact that you can have a broker on the phone in a second?
What about the culture of the brokerage?
That is so important because as humans, we are always looking for a tribe. We people are like, argh. Yeah. That's why people join churches. That's why we have women's professional associations and BNIs and neighbor organizations. Humans are social people, and we're always looking for a tribe. But in real estate, for some reason, somebody said, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the investor world, what you get is there's so much information on YouTube that people are like, I don't need to hire a coach or go to a mastermind or pay to go to a seminar because I can just go watch that. Well, guess what that YouTube channel or that TikTok video can't do for you? It can't hold your hand through your difficult transaction. It can't find out what's actually not working in your business. And so I can't tell you how many times I've spent money just to get in proximity to people.
Absolutely. Proximity is power.
It was a long-term thinking concept. And too many people are short-term thinking, like, how does this impact me today? I'm like, look, I understand. I have to buy in, right? There's something I have to invest, right?
Right.
But it got me in, if let's say I spent, $2,500 to go to a mastermind one weekend. No one loves paying that. But if I understand the benefits, but people all day argue, I don't need that stuff. I can just go on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. And I'm like, but you don't understand. We're having two conversations here. I'm not saying you can't learn, right? Like there's tons of ways you can go learn or you can go get those basics. But the understanding part here, those two, is like, what are you not getting because you're using this method right?
Relationships.
It's and so a lot of that is relationships.
Right.
Tons of it is relationships, and I cannot put a dollar amount on certain relationships and what they have the money it's made me in my life, right? Like in my career, or what it's done. You know, you become the 5 folks that you spend the most time with, right?
Every
But
time.
you grow in the conversations you're around. But too many people become an island, and they don't realize the conversation that puts them in.
Yep.
It's a conversation of itself.
It's very true.